Police officers, what's the dumbest thing you've ever seen a criminal do or say? These are my pants, but those are not my pockets. You can't make this stuff up. You know, I'd be really curious to know if this was made up on the spot in their drugged out mind, or if this was something that they had planned for a long time. Friend's daughter and daughter's boyfriend got busted with a kilo of weed. The friend's daughter says, "Oh, we weren't going to smoke it, we were going to sell it." Oh, okay, well in that case, carry on. DUI trial. The defendant chose to represent herself. She tries to introduce evidence during the trial, but is quickly blocked by the prosecution. The judge, maybe taking pity on the flaming train wreck that is this woman's defense, asks to see this evidence. It was a receipt from the bar she left before I stopped her that showed she had purchased 2 large margaritas. Her whole defense was, "I couldn't have been drunk after only 2 margaritas." She was found guilty. My initial reason for stopping her was that she drove down an embankment on the side of the road to get to McDonald's drive-thru. Yeah, I think that a courtroom is probably not the best time to brag about how much you can drink. Retired cop here. Boy, do I have stories. So one idiot move a guy did was he steals some poor girl's car. It was her first car, she worked full-time and was a sweet little thing, and we felt so bad. She was crushed. Also in the car for some reason was her cell phone. So a colleague, who has the gift of taking crap really well, calls the number. The dude answers. It goes a little something like this. The cop says, "Mother effer, you stole my girlfriend's car." The bad guy says, "B, I will F you up and then F your B." The cop says, "Bring it, mother effer, no cops, no friends. Me and you, I'm at Chevron on Main Street and 5th. Coward, I'm calling you out." He says, "B, I'm on my way." Click. I say, "No freaking way he's coming." The dude rounded the corner and pulls into the gas station. We hit our cars behind it, and then when he parked, we boxed him in. He had a gun too. The freaking idiot. On probation, had a loaded gun, came to us. Man, this sounds like something straight out of a cartoon. I guess some people's ego is way bigger than their brain. I used to work in arraignments, and a guy was entering his not guilty plea and confirming that he was true billed, that they have the right name on his charging instrument. After that, the court asks if you can afford an attorney, and asks some quick questions before giving you paperwork to request a court-appointed attorney. This guy was booked on unlawful use of a motor vehicle Class C, basically stealing car stereos. The judge asks him if he's unemployed. He says no. The judge asks him what he does for money. "Oh, I steal car stereos at rest stops and sell them." That is very suspicious. I wonder if this is a clue. My brother is a Detroit cop. He told me this one. They get a call from someone reporting their car was stolen. They show up, and it turns out someone had already stolen the tires off the car. Then a different group stole the actual car. They pushed it 2 blocks without tires, and left perfect grooves in the street all the way to their garage. Their defense was, "But we didn't steal the tires." Detroit, when we rob you, we really rob you. Yeah, I guess it kind of makes me wonder though, are the people who just stole the car responsible for replacing the entire car and the tires? I also think they're gonna need some replacement rims too. My boyfriend is a police officer. Last week he pulled over a drunk driver who ended up speeding off. The car chased back to his house and the drunk guy tells him, "I got home, it's okay, you can go now." The drunk guy continues arguing and it's 3 a.m. so his family wakes up and his son steps out to the front porch and yells, "Dang it, Dad, you freaking idiot. We told you to stop doing this." Hey, I just thought you guys were giving me a police escort so that I got home safely. Not a cop, but a corrections officer. 2 inmates got into a fight in the hallway. I was the closest to them and only saw the start of the fight out of the corner of my eye. In my report, I wrote that I saw the 2 inmates fall to the ground with one on top of the other. Later, the hearing sergeant was reading the report to one of the inmates so they could dispute any facts in the report they felt were untrue or biased. He asked the inmate if they wanted to dispute any facts in my report, and the inmate said, "Yeah, we didn't fall to the ground. I grabbed the other inmate and slammed his butt on the floor." So what would have been a simple fighting charge turned into an assault charge. Hey, don't you accuse me of fighting. I was in charge that whole time. "Sir, can I see your driver's license?" I don't have one." "Then why are you driving?" "I wasn't. I was traveling." Okay, well that's still a penalty. You're gonna have to pass the ball over. I arrested a guy for shooting heroin in the parents' room of a shopping center. Walked in while he had the needle in his arm. We stare at each other for a bit. Then he comes out with, "I'm, diabetic." I cuff him, leave my partner to do the search while I read caution and rights. Old mate is not diabetic, and we know this because he's got 87 prior convictions for use and possession and trafficking drugs. I go through the usual, "You do not have to say or do anything" spiel, then say, "Do you understand these rights?" He's totally cooked on heroin at this point, and he just looks at me and goes, "You want to get dinner tonight?" It's not the worst response I've had to caution and rights, though. Yeah, I always think that's such a weird relationship when people get arrested so much that they're basically just friends with the cops at that point. "Oh, you here to arrest me again?" "Yep, alright, well, let's go." I stopped someone who was in the area of a load of theft from motor vehicles. After a bit of questioning, I carried out a search and found numerous wallets and phones, etc. He claimed that all of the cards were his, all 13 different identities. To be fair, he stuck to his story. He carried it all the way to court going not guilty. Come on, man, haven't you heard of multiple personality disorders? I need an ID for each one. Motor vehicle stop. License and registration, please. He proceeds to lean over to the passenger seat, scoop up a handful of lo mein, and tries to put it in the officer's hand. He was locked up for OUI, fourth offense. To this day, I still wonder if he thought he was passing the correct paperwork or if the Chinese food was some sort of peace offering. Sir, are you trying to bribe me with Chinese food? Because it's gonna take a lot more than that. Responded to an apartment complex for a kid eating a corn dog and was stuck on the roof. The FD arrives and we get the kid off the roof. I asked the kid why he was eating a corn dog on the roof. His answer was, because I threw it up there. His look of duh left me speechless. You know, it's so strange when some people treat actions that they willfully did as things that just somehow happened to them. Like, I have no idea how I just had the corn dog in my hand and I threw it and it landed on the roof. Like, doesn't that ever happen to you? Dispatcher. I had a guy call in and tell us that he's currently violating the protective order by being with his ex who was pregnant by him. He wants us to call the judge and get it dismissed so they can go inside the restaurant and eat. The officer is standing next to my partner, who answered the call, and asks the guy where he is so we can send the judge to him. The guy hangs up. Oh, well, I hope they had a nice dinner anyway. Woman is waiting for her DUI trial in the courtroom. The lawyers and judge are milling around and getting their paperwork in order. The trial starts in 10 to 15 minutes. The prosecuting attorney asks her if she wants to take the plea deal one last time. She refuses and goes on about how this is unconstitutional, and the police and the courts are corrupt, and how is she going to take her kid to school, blah blah blah. She's starting to cause a bit of a scene, yelling, acting like a child, just being generally annoying. Someone in the room gets a whiff of alcohol. She is out on bond, so she can basically be given a PBT at any time for any reason. The judge orders one on her. She registers a 0.226 in court. This woman, who is on trial for DUI, had the audacity to drive to court drunk and then moan and groan about how she isn't being treated fairly, and we're all corrupt and this is unconstitutional. Not only that, but it explicitly states in your bond conditions that you cannot consume alcohol. So I cuff her and bring her to the jail. She's still running her mouth during the walkover. I had nothing to say. I had absolutely zero sympathy for her. I could barely hold in my laughter on the walk over to the jail. You know, this may sound callous, but I think that some people just cannot be helped. All the people from To Catch a Predator. NBC has online transcripts, and they still come up with the stupidest excuses. Chris Hansen says, "Sir, what else could you mean by asking the girl if she was a virgin, and then telling her you wanted to penetrate her anally?" The Predator says, "I'm just here to watch football, man. She told me she was 18. I'm in the transcript. You clearly say she's 13. You could get in trouble for this and ask her not to tell anyone." Yeah, well, what are you gonna do? You're just gonna come out and say, "Yep, I admit, I'm a creep. You caught me. Take me away now." In a city near to me, a guy murdered a woman, put her body in a large garment bag, and left her in a vacant lot. Unfortunately for him, he forgot to take the tags with his name and address off the bag from a recent flight. Wait, how did you know it was me? So my personal favorite was when a bloke on a motorbike swerved in front of our squad car and crashed. We hopped out, picked the bike up off of him, it was pinning his leg, and asked, "You alright, mate?" To which he replied, "Of course I'm alright, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, you just fell off your bike, mate." "No, I didn't." He just kept insisting that there was no way he could have crashed, and it must have been someone else. Okay, then just give me a good story of why you are sitting in the middle of the highway. I stopped a lady for speeding 15 miles an hour over the limit. I asked what her reason could be for going so fast, and she said, "I live here. You can't give me a speeding ticket. I live just down the street. I live here. This is unbelievable. I live here." Yep, once you reach the neighborhood, all state and federal laws are off limits. It's all about whatever laws the HOA puts in place. In law enforcement, but not a regular cop. Middle of search warrant looking for a bloke, lots of drug convictions in the past, found a still burning blunt in the ashtray in the living room, but no sign of the guy in the house. I'm 99% sure he is in the roof cavity. I announced to my partner, "I think he's up there, should we look?" Suddenly the ceiling starts talking, and I hear the softest, "No, hee. Can they hear me? Nah, it's all good." So my partner said, "Nah man, I didn't hear that guy say we shouldn't look up there." The ceiling replies with, "Sweet, I knew they wouldn't find me." Needless to say, we looked and pulled a very, very stoned guy out from under the insulation bats. Side note, they make you itchy AF, so be careful choosing your hiding spots when you're stoned. You know, I bet there's a lot of cops out there that whenever they have to go after people who are like really heavily on drugs, they're just like, "Man, what's the point? This is too easy." Unless they're on crack, then it might be a little more difficult. A friend who is an officer told me this one a little bit ago. He was driving near where a known car thief lived, so he stops by. SUV in the driveway with no tags. Walks up, runs the VIN, stolen. Now, the property had a house on it, and then out back a small mother-in-law suite where said thief lived. Officer walks out back, knocks, and then hears a car door. Officer starts running, engine starts, and yup, thief is driving away in the stolen SUV. Officer knows where he ditches stolen cars at, so has an officer stake out that area. Sure enough, 2 hours later, the SUV rolls up with a Jeep following it. The SUV driver wipes down the dash, wipes down the outside door handle, and gets in the Jeep. Officer pulls them over and arrests them both. Why both? Well, the Jeep is stolen. The officer runs her license, sends another officer to her address, and guess what? She had a stolen car at her place too. 3 stolen cars recovered, 2 people in jail, all because one officer decided to stop by a thief's last address. I mean, come on, man, you're getting a little bit too predictable. My brother-in-law is a cop in a small town. Pulled a car over one night, recognized the kid, smelled weed inside the car, and said, "Give me the weed and I won't search your car, and I won't give you a ticket, and you can be on your way." The kid fights him, saying he doesn't know what that smell is, and there's no weed, and how can I trust that you won't take me to the station if I give it to you? My brother-in-law promises again that if he hands him the weed, he will let him go. No questions asked. The kid keeps being a moron, so the guy searches the car, and finds many more drugs hidden all over, as well as weed. The guy says, "Alright, let's go to the station." The kid gets upset and says, "You said you weren't going to do this. See, I couldn't trust you." I groan and laugh every time I think of that. What a dummy. "Alright, kid, I'm giving you a chance to get away scot-free." "No way, you have no idea what kind of stuff I'm hiding." I was police at the time. In the middle of the night, my partner and I found a car in a cemetery. Stolen cars were dumped there regularly, and the car had its windows down, and it had only recently been left there. It was still warm to touch. It didn't flag up as stolen, and through the window I could see a meth pipe in plain view. That gives us the ability to search the car. Inside we find a bunch of meth pipes, 3.5 grams of meth, a small amount of cannabis, and a handgun. There was also a tablet/phone that was unlocked, and while we were searching the car, the tablet kept on receiving messages from people trying to score meth. I had a quick look through the phone, and was able to figure out that the owner of the car had come out from the city. I worked rurally at the time to make a score from one of the local gangs, but the gang didn't want her turning up, so arranged to meet her at the cemetery and conduct business somewhere else. I leave a business card under the wipers. Not my card, but the station's. And on the back I wrote that she, the owner of the car, should come down to the station if she wants to get her stuff back. And sure enough she did. At 9 the next morning, methed out, looking for her drugs and gun. You know, to any sober mind, just the thought of, oh, I need to go stop by the police station to pick up all my drugs, that should be raising some alarm bells. But I guess when you're on meth, there are no alarm bells. A buddy of mine was a campus PD officer back in college. I was convinced I could beat the sobriety test after a 6-pack, so I had him take me through it. I walked the line, touched my nose, and hopped on one foot. Then he asked me to say the alphabet backwards, and I told him I couldn't do that sober. He said that sentence is a probable cause for a blood test, and that's how I learned that they aren't just testing your motor skills. Yeah, it's kinda hard to outsmart somebody when you are already putting yourself at a disadvantage. Not my story, but my police officer friend's. He had gone in to arrest someone for dealing drugs. He was in full uniform, while someone else had already been in there undercover. The drug dealer looks at the undercover cop and says, "You're undercover." "Yes, well done." He looks at the uniform friend and says, "You're undercover too." He was not. Then he looks at someone else, not a police officer, and says, "And you." The guy responds with, "How am I an undercover police officer? I just bought drugs off of you." And that's how they made an unexpected arrest at the raid. You know, that police uniform you're wearing makes me think you might be an undercover cop. I'm not sure entirely, but I'm keeping my eye on you. Secondhand story, as I was the victim of a burglary, but heard this from a police officer. I saw the guy breaking into my place on a security camera and called them. They managed to arrest the guy while he was still inside packing up my stuff. He was pretty cocky to the police, as he thought that as he hadn't actually left with this bag of swag, my stuff, that he hadn't committed a crime yet. All he did was broke a window. Yeah, technically it's not theft until the stuff I'm collecting leaves the property, right? I'm the guy that did something stupid. I was speeding while smoking a cigarette. I got pulled over, had no ashtray in my car, but didn't want to be smoking when the officer came to my window. So I flicked it out my window, right in front of him. He actually let me pick it up. Littering is a $1,000 fine. I'm not a smart man. Well, if there's anything you learned from this video, it's that if you're gonna be a criminal, at least be a smart one. But if you are a smart person, then maybe just don't waste all your potential on being a criminal. So I guess that's the whole conundrum as to why so many criminals are just kinda stupid. But that's not to say that there's any shortage of stupidity outside of the criminal world, because we've got plenty of videos just like this one.